Radio. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in Northport, Florida. I hope you guys are out there driving carefully today. It is a wicked Monday with a lot of people on the road. I was down in the Punta Gorda area and will tell you that traffic, I believe, is picking up. I believe that some of the snowbirds have migrated south, I think, whether to look at their houses or lack thereof, but they are here. Just be careful on the roads. Let's get home safe tonight, and remind your loved ones to take their time getting home. There's no reason to rush, and no reason to fill up the hospitals unnecessarily. So I've got a very special guest in the house today. I'm going to let her introduce herself because not only is she a first-time flyer on the show, but she's also a newer employee with C.A.R.E. But I'll let Marilyn talk about it. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Marilyn Caruso. I'm the newest member of the SB advocate team here at C.A.R.E, which is the Center for Abuse and Rape Emergencies. And I do advocacy for sexual violence, answering the phones and all sorts of things. But as I said, I'm fairly new. I've only been here since August. My background is teaching art. So as well as advocacy, I'm trying to pull in some arts therapy and meditation as well. So we might talk about that in a little while.
Yeah, kind of a cool way to go about it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got an arts background and you're brand new in the care field. How about
Absolutely.
that? But you guys do so much more than just rape and prevention. We've had other guests on the show and we've talked about human trafficking and different things like that. But you also have fundraisers that you do, and so you raise funds. You also have community business partners and all that sort of thing too that you guys coordinate things with, don't you?
Absolutely. We do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of fundraising, and we do a lot of giving back to the community, of course, because that's why we're here. We're here to support people who have been abused, domestic violence, and sexual abuse. And those survivors, those are the ones that we are here to support. So we do a lot of things with the community. We do have a human trafficking symposium that's coming up in January, actually, and we are working with law enforcement and other community leaders to present this. It's going to be at the Charlotte Event Center, and that's going to be, January 12th next year.
Yep.
And it will be a half-a-day symposium directed at actually modern day slavery. It's called human trafficking, but it is widespread in Florida, unfortunately. And
I think we're number 3, aren't we?
Excuse me? I do believe we are. We are right up there, which is unfortunate. It might have to do with the people who are targeted.
You kind of froze up a little bit. So you froze up just a tad. Let's see if you'll catch up. But you talked a little bit just before you froze up. We were talking about why Florida was so critical.
Well, sex trafficking or human trafficking can happen to anyone, but people who are targeted for that are recent migrants or people who have relocated. So that might possibly be why Florida is high in that, because a lot of people do relocate down here or do migrate to this state to do, the farm working and things of that nature. It's not just that set of people. It could be people who are dealing with mental health concerns or substance abuse as well. And so, of course, those are more of our vulnerable people in the state. And that's why they do get targeted, unfortunately.
And it's a big ordeal, and I'm kind of glad that over the last 3 4 years we've talked about all kinds of different things on this show when it comes to care, because everything that you guys are doing, it's really in that abuse section. Unfortunately, and I do know of several people and families that have dealt with different styles of abuse because of the different, uh, oh my gosh, ethnic backgrounds that we have here, because we
Absolutely.
have such a great mix. And a lot of the customs that they have in other countries are not the same as what we have here. So expectations are completely off the charts different a lot of times. And you have, this influx of foreign bodies here, and we're kind of blessed. We're a good, healthy mixing pot, I believe. So we've got different sections, but the education that comes along with what CARE provides, and the advocacy group that you guys have, it really does help the public if they're in need of just a phone call, even, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. We do have our helpline and our hotline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we have the domestic violence hotline, and then we have the SB helpline. We also have texting available, and it's really for anybody who may be in a situation who needs some compassion, needs a friendly ear, needs someone who's going to really listen. And we are so fortunate because we have so many resources in this area. So we're able to direct them, to help them figure out a plan to move forward and to get the help that they need, whether sometimes it might be financially, sometimes it might be with housing, counseling. We have, as I said, so many different resources. We do one-on-one counseling where people can come in. We do have support groups. We have a domestic violence support group that meets Tuesdays at 10 a.m. in at our administration building in Punta Gorda. And then we have the sexual violence support group that meets Wednesday at 3 p.m. So we have, as you said, a lot of resources and a lot of ways that we can help people. And when you start to talk to the general public or to people in our community, you realize how many people have been affected by human trafficking, by domestic violence or sexual violence, and how many survivors are out there. And, we do, as I said, we have the support groups, and they are so vitally important for people to try to come to these support groups, because they can realize that they're not alone. It's a safe haven. And quite often that's what we just need as humans, to know that we're not, whatever trial or tribulation that we're going through, we're not going through it independently. There's someone out there to support us. There's someone out there who's walked in our shoes. And that's really, support groups offer that great support and that community.
Doesn't
I
that make
think.
a difference, though, in the grand scheme of things, for somebody to find out that and I say this to you because there are so many different scenarios that can play out within the abuse side of things, but for someone to feel guilty, and stay home and stay with that person, um, a lot of times it's because they do feel like it's their fault and they are by themselves and nobody else is going through this like they are, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why it's so great that we do have the help and hotlines out there 24/7, because it can be 3 o'clock in the morning and you feel like you need to get out of a situation. We're going to do everything we can to help you. We do have a shelter here with limited space, and unfortunately, it's always full. But we do have other resources where we can direct people places to go, and where all of the advocates and all of the helpline operators are so great at helping the survivor on the phone come up with a plan, a safety plan, even if they have to stay in that situation, to give them the tools and to talk through that with them so that they can figure out how they can stay where they are safe, maybe until they have the means or the capability or the strength to actually move out of that situation. And just by calling us, that's a powerful, powerful move right there for them. That's, giving them the strength, giving the survivor the strength to go on, no matter what they're, whether they're going to leave the situation or they're going to be staying in that situation.
And this I hate to bring up the time of the year, but there are critical times of years for a lot of people, different stress levels. The fact that we just went through probably one of the most stressful intros into a holiday season with Ian being right on our tracks and really lighting our world on fire in a lot of cases for a lot of people out there. That stress level adds in because one, the household is now in a could be in a complete disarray, along with the fact that some jobs may have been lost. Doesn't the time of year have an influence on what happens a lot of times in households?
Absolutely, absolutely. Just by the nature of the holidays, promoting being together as a family and giving gifts and exchanging good cheer. If you're not in that situation or if you're not capable of that, if you are financially strained, and as you said, coming off of Ian, holy moly, I don't know, we lost a room. I'm not sure what happened there with you, but I mean, that was so stressful. And if you are in a domestic violence or, a sexual violence survivor kind of situation, add that to everything that we just went through. And like you said, losing possibly a job, losing your home. It's overwhelming at times. And yes, I think as the holidays approach, society says that we should be celebrating and we should be rejoicing and giving thanks. But, it can be frustrating if you're not in that situation as it is. And then you have that extra added, almost having to put on a good face that things are okay and, that we can carry on the way we should be. But there's been a lot of stress in everyone's life lately. So I just really can't imagine if you're in one of those situations.
Well, and I want to talk real quick about the hotline because I've talked to several people and they're hesitant with the hotline and because they feel like they're going to get tracked and that oh my gosh, the information's going to get out, everything's going to go crazy, they're going to know where I'm at, they're going to send the police. Can What can you do to reassure people that that's truly not what you're about?
It's not what we're about. We're here to lend support. We're here to be provide them with information. Typically, when a client calls the hotline or the helpline, we do ask their name. They can give their first name. Good news is they could give a fake name. We're not about tracking people. We're not about keeping records, to have our data all lined up. We're here to support whoever that survivor is. And then we listen. Quite often, someone who's calling at midnight, the helpline, they're in a situation. They don't feel stable enough. They might be panicking. And we just want to give them that level of comfort and let them know that there are people out here to listen where, they can share as much information as they want to with us. We do, try to fill out and get information so that if they do, of course, need follow-up services and such, but if they just need a supportive ear and they just want to vent and kind of get through the situation the moment that they're in, then we're going to do that. I mean, we are trained to, talk them through kind of mindfulness, breathing, and things like that, so that even the simplest thing like that could help them through the situation that they're in. And we are, as I said, we don't do callbacks, so we don't track you. You don't have to give your address and any of that information if you don't want to. So I would strongly suggest, if you ever are in a situation where you feel you need someone to lean on, really, call us. And if you're in a domestic violence situation, we're going to be here to help, and we will help you as much as you want or as little as you want. And most of all, we're trained just to listen and to really hear what you're saying and to try to understand the situation that you're in.
So you're brand new in
Yes.
the real world. You've got several months under your belt, but what's your take on your position at C.A.R.E as a new person into the industry? What is your take on the approach that they've presented to you and how you've adapted yourself into it?
I'm not sure I 100% understand that.
The,
The
to
approach,
become
what?
to become an advocate like you are, it
Yes,
definitely takes a different mindset than your typical job. Okay.
absolutely.
And so how did you see yourself pictured into this position once you kind of gravitated to it?
Well, one of the things that when I was a teacher, I had taught for over 24 years, and ironically enough, I realized when I first started working here and started the training that so much of what I did as a teacher, because I taught high school for the last 22, 23 years, was a lot of this advocacy, because I was forming those relationships and having that rapport with my students. So it was such a natural transition. I was, getting to a point in my teaching career where I knew I needed to make a change. And I really thought about going into counseling. I've had in my family some mental health and some sexual violence history. And so I wanted to get into something like that. So then when I did get hired on here at C.A.R.E, and as I said, I started going through the training, I realized how much um, things that I had been doing were paralleling the things and the way that I was supposed to be an advocate here. Many of the situations that I've heard from my students, unfortunately, at the high school level, were domestic violence, sexual violence, things of that nature. Unfortunately, even at the teenage years.
Yep.
And I know that, as I said, I was kind of being an advocate for them there. So when I started here, it just was a very, very natural transition for me. And I guess, as you said, it takes a certain kind of person. Once I started here, I just knew that this was like what I was supposed to be doing. This was the next step I was supposed to be doing in my life. And, not in the classroom, but still that advocacy. Because as a teacher, as many teachers know, God bless the teachers out there, especially in all the situations we've had lately. But, you do advocate, you are an advocate for your students. Whether it's with parents, whether it's with other students, whether it's with teachers and administration, those are the great teachers. They're the ones who go up to bat for their students. So now I'm going up to bat for the survivors. And as I said, it just seems like it's been a very natural transition for me.
And I'm going to stick there for a second because you kind of said a couple things in there that I want to highlight, because there are a lot of things that happen at that middle school to high school transition in life. Um,
Mm,
the dating world kind of opens up. The boyfriend girlfriend thing kind of opens up. There are some scary moments in there on both sides. And back in the day, I did my thing back in the day, and I'm sure you did your thing. But it's a lot different today than it was back in 1982.
absolutely. Absolutely. The pressures are different. Um, Even the time that I taught in high school, as I said, over 22 years in high school, the thought process for the teenagers, and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, especially in the realm of sexual violence. And, you know, mainly, I have to say, the teenagers that I would do with this females who were accepting of some behaviors that are just not right. And unfortunately, I think that when there's teenagers out there, male or female, and they let certain behaviors happen, and it could be peer-to-peer behavior for sure. It could be adult to them behavior. But if they're accepting of it or think that that's the norm, then that can follow them and up through their 20s, 30s, and for a lifetime, because it's hard to, if you are accepting of that when you're at that tender middle school, high school age, in those formative years. It's it just really, it's concerning because it can follow you if you don't break the chain.
With your background, though, one being a teacher of 22 years, and
Mm-hmm.
now getting into this, and we have the patented answers that you can give through C.A.R.E, but what what are some of the things that you would say to um, maybe a male or female out there listening right now, or even a parent or an aunt or an uncle who's out there listening right now, or grandmother or grandfather who sees this everyday type of behavior, and they're frustrated, they're kind of throwing their hands in the air. You're coming in from an educational background where you see a lot of it or have seen a lot of it, and now you're going into this where you're an advocate for the survivor of it. But what would you tell those parents now that you have the knowledge you have right now at C.A.R.E?
I would say to try to break that chain. And it's kind of ironic that you brought that up, because some of my fellow advocates and I have been talking about trying to do some kind of a workshop or class, and it's just in the beginning stages about breaking the chain. You know, maybe talking to your teen or your preteen about how consent is something that you need to have. It's not it's not just a given that someone can talk to you that way or can touch you that way. And those talks, I think, they're not easy, especially with a teenager. I'm a parent of two teenage boys, and they can be difficult, but I think that whoever the caregiver is, if there's some situation that they know of that's happening with their teenager or preteen, is trying to break those chains, trying to make it that it's not okay, that things remain status quo and go along in that direction. I
And
think.
with breaking the chain with what you're talking about,
Mhm.
that is a vital piece of this um, mindset. That's got to be one of the hardest things to do, though, because the the teenagers today seem to be more dug in at an early age than what we used to be, and they're not in that mindset of listening to parents as much. Um,
Exactly.
Go ahead.
I kind of think that, for lack of a better word, we as adults in society have to kind of tag team them. And what I mean by that is that, teachers and coaches, clergymen, people in the community, their supervisors at work, have to, again, say that these things are not okay, and kind of also model the behavior that is okay, because I know lots of times that accepted behavior is something that they may see an uncle or a father doing to someone else, or a mother even doing to someone else. And so we have to be the models for those students. And like I said, we kind of have to come in from every direction. I used to tell my boys when they were younger, when they first got their phones, with texting, and I know pictures go back and forth and this and that. And I said, you always have to think that that girl's mom and dad are standing right over her shoulder, and they're seeing everything that you are texting, whether they took that to heart or not. But if they get it from me, if they get it from their father, if they get it from, their coach, as I said, from their pastor, if they, whoever, if they get it from enough directions, I think that it kind of is in the background. And there's still going to be teenagers. There's no doubt about it, because teenagers will be teenagers. But I think that if we just keep on reinforcing that, and going to C.A.R.E. land, letting them know that there's resources out there. Within the schools, there's plenty of resources out there. Within care, and there's lots of different help and hotlines out there for them as well. I know that when I was teaching, we had these little blue cards that had all sorts of helplines, and just letting them know that there are resources out there. So if the people who are their immediate supervisors or the adults in their lives are the ones that maybe are letting this behavior be acceptable, then they, there are other places that they can turn to.
I want to kind of spin off this for just a second and kind of talk about the female, male relationships that are out there that we generally do not highlight in these types of shows. But factually, there's domestic violence and sexual violence there, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And unfortunately, it is more male on male, and there is a stigma. And that probably has to do with the stigma of, male and male and female relationships. It's not, there is a large majority of society who is not accepting of that kind of behavior, for whatever reasons. And I think that's why there's a large stigma with bisexual, homosexual, lesbian, that whole genre of asexual students and adults, excuse me. And it's hard for them. But we at C.A.R.E., very accepting of that, very aware that that is happening, and trying to do our best to address that as well, because it is happening. And it's so, like I said, for gentlemen, it's very hard for them to come out when it's a male on male kind of abusive relationship or a sexual violation. But again, there are people out there, and you are not alone. That's the biggest thing I can say. You are not alone. And there are many resources out there.
And I want to stay there just for a couple more minutes, because there are scenarios that play out there that people need to be aware of. I mean, when you do have an exit strategy put into place and you're successful in getting away, a lot of times there are restraining orders out there on the opposite side of the event that took place. What I've seen and what I've followed is those restraining orders a lot of times don't mean a whole
You
lot
froze.
to both sides. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what you said, the last part. I'm so sorry about that.
I basically said that the restraining orders on both sides, they don't tend to mean much to a lot of people out there, because they want to go back with the partner, and there's a lot of pressure then to, hey, drop the charges, don't do it, it's not me, it's me. Can you kind of talk a little bit about why, once you get the restraining order, whether it's a domestic violence or on a male to male, female to female, or male to female, just in general, what's the rule of thumb on the exit strategy and then breaking it? It gets confusing at times.
To be honest with you, there is no general rule of thumb. You can get those restraining orders, you can get those different decrees, and we do have legal advocacy here that can help you get that. Yep. But as you said, sometimes with if it's dual, there's a control issue. Someone is going to be maybe the dominant person in that relationship. And I think so that plays into it, how that control issue, how can I get you back? And then I think also the secondary thing is there's a level of like comfort. And if you're in a relationship, let's say for 5 or 10 years, and you've dealt with this for the last 10 years, domestic violence, and maybe you have children with this person, you don't, naturally, human nature is you don't want to give up on somebody. You don't want to give up on a relationship that you think is worth it, even though you know that the situation that you're in is maybe not safe, or maybe you do need to have that exit strategy. And so I think at CARE, what we really try to do is we try to put the power back in the survivor's hands. We're going to give you those resources, and we're going to try to support you as best we can. But we're not here to tell anyone how to make their decisions, whether to stay, whether to go, whether to get, that injunction or not. We're just going to follow your lead, and we're going to support you, because ultimately you know what that situation is. And there is counseling out there. There is couple counseling out there. There, as I said before, we have one-on-one, and we have different therapists who come here actually as well, to do counseling therapies. I mean, excuse me, counseling sessions. So we can try to help you with that situation. But again, we're not going to tell you what you need to do or what you don't need to do. And I just, it's easy for someone who is not in that situation to say, well, they just need to leave. They just need to get out of there. It's a bad situation. But if you're not in that situation and you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, or what the past held between a couple, whatever sex, the couple is, it's so, or sometimes there's so many different facets to it. And as I said, at CARE, we're just going to try to give you as many resources as you can. And we are here, forever if you want. I just talked to a client the other day who has been on and off with us since Hurricane Charlie, and still from time to time needs that support. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're going to be here for.
We started this show going down a quick little path, and we kind of veered off a little bit. But you know, your background, 22 years being a teacher, the feel that you have going into this, and the I think the level of commitment that you've put forth to it right now to kind of transition into it. There's a lot to be said with how CARE handles everything carefully. And I say that with no pun intended, because it's if there's any words that we could get out there, it's really that if you need a friend who doesn't talk, CARE's it. Your advocate, you're not going to run around town spreading the word. You're not going to, call these people back. You're not going to do any of those things. So you are kind of that best friend that you can pick up the phone and call when there's a good, safe environment, and maybe get some things off your chest and get a conversation going. So if you didn't have an exit strategy, you could actually maybe get yourself calmed down enough to rethink a strategy on how to lessen some of that at home tension, I guess.
Well, we also try to come up with a safety plan, and I think I've said this before, whether it's to stay or whether it's to go. And what for that survivor do they need to do, if they had to leave immediately, or if they feel safer just staying and trying to work things out or figure out how they can get through this. And again, we're not in a position to tell survivors what they need to do, because they know their situation better than anybody. And so we try to put the power back into their hands. So many clients of ours want to, really what they want is they want to be empowered. They want that little bit of empowerment, and to have the control. And that's what we try to give them. I actually just started working on a project, with because this is one way that a lot of female clients of ours are getting control is they're getting Medusa tattoos. And I don't know if on our website you can go into the SV section, because what in the community, we've been hearing that people have been getting Medusa tattoos. And because I'm trying to find the information, but the actual legend of Medusa is that she was actually raped, I think, by Poseidon. And part of the curse of what was given to her to protect her was that she was given the head, the snake head, to protect her. And so there's females who are out in our community in order to kind of take back that empowerment and to protect themselves, getting various Medusa tattoos. So we just recently started a campaign where we're going to be going into different areas in our community, and we're going to be posting some posters. I just actually sent you an email of the local tattoo parlors just created this image, and we're going to be putting some help brochures out there with numbers on it, so that if people do go into tattoo parlors, maybe smoke shops, piercing parlors and places like that, if you get a piercing or a body tattoo kind of thing, and we're finding that as I said, some of our clients are having this done, but some of the people who are getting tattoos done are also not having the best experiences and having some sexual violations within that realm. So we're trying to do a campaign where we're kind of putting out the helpline there, and letting people know that it does provide confidential support for the survivors. The poster actually has the hotline on it as well, or the helpline on it. And just to, again, get out into the community, but also promote this empowerment of people who have been or who are in a domestic violence or a sexual violence situation.
And I'm getting ready to pull that up here just a second, because I want you to keep talking about that, because
if you can go on our website, which I don't, and you can go into the SV.
I'm pulling up that video. I'm pulling up the one that I sent you right quick. I just want to show the picture of what you were talking about.
Yes. But I think it's really cool because, again, I think that people who are in a DV or an SB situation, they need to get back the control. And the first step for them getting back the control really is reaching out to us. This is the image that Moxie at Moxie Tattoos created for a poster that we are going to be putting out there. And I think it's super cool because, again, it shows the Medusa. And on the poster, it has a link to our website that actually tells a little bit about like I said, the legend of Medusa and why she is Medusa. And so it's a really neat campaign, and I think it's going to be great because it's going to be reaching a demographic of our community that we haven't really reached out to before.
Well, and here's the I guess the ironic thing is that just goes to show that you guys are really trying to touch every individual out there versus just staying in a box. You're trying to think outside the box and where people are at in their life. Back 25 years ago, tattoos were not viewed the same way they are today. So there's been advancements, whether it's advancements to the good or to the bad. It's they're prevalent in our society now. I've got one myself, and it took me about 50 years to get it, but I have one. But it's the fact that you have to approach everyone with a different approach. You have to expect this to get certain results, but not 100% of the people are going to look at this and go, what are they? I understand. But there is a demographic out there that's going to look at this and go, I get it.
Yep.
And go ahead.
Well, it kind of goes back to also like we saw that this was a trend on, and we try to, like you said, address as many different areas. We're not just laser focused on one demographic, one type of person, because that's just not how DV or SV works. But we heard about this trend on TikTok actually, where females were getting this tattoo and then they were posting it, kind of like, again, being empowered, taking back the power. And then we started investigating and saw, like, in human trafficking too, quite often the perpetrators will brand the people who they have recruited. And so what was happening, or what is happening also, is that um, survivors are saying, no, yeah, I'm not going to be branded by you. And when they do have that breakaway plan and they're done, then they're going to tattoo parlors to get tattoos over the brand that they had. And again, it's all about taking back the control and taking back the power. And that is so huge for survivors when they start to feel that they can be in control of their lives, and that they do have the ultimate control over their bodies. It's huge. It's absolutely huge. And that's part of this. And I think that that's one thing that's really wonderful about CARE, is that we are not just centered on, okay, it's going to be low income or it's going to be this nationality. We deal with different demographics. We do reach out to, in the high schools, we do go to senior centers, because domestic violence and sexual violence does not just stop at a certain age. Unfortunately, it's from birth up to 105. So we do try to, at CARE, address all of the different areas that we possibly can, so that we can reach as much of the community as possible, because um, we need to make people aware, and we need to make sure that the survivors know that we're out there. And it is unfortunate, I will say, because sometimes when we do our outreach, there's people that we walk up to and we say who we are, and they do not believe that there is any kind of human trafficking, any kind of domestic violence, any kind of sexual violence within our communities. And that is so, I don't know, it's disturbing to me, because it is out there, unfortunately. And again, that's part of our job here at CARE, is to reach out and make sure people know that it is here. And it is a hard subject sometimes to talk about. So I thank you for always having us on and always being welcoming to us. But it is something that does have to be talked about, because there are many people who are in these situations.
Well, and let's stay there for a second, just because the fact that we have these shows, it's more important for people who are listening, whether now or later on in the day. Click share, get this information out. The more that you share the word of this valuable information, it's going to get into the right hands. And we've had these conversations on the show before, and
Mhm.
whether we attract 20 people or one, every single time we try to at least engage somewhere in someone's life, some spot in their life, so that maybe they'll be bold enough, maybe just to pick up the phone and say hi for a change. Uh,
Yep.
and I think the biggest thing, and it's her first time on the show, and fantastic job, by the way.
Thank
Um,
you.
really, the fact that uh, I didn't know that you had 20 years teaching experience under your belt, and now you're doing this. That just gives another, I think, soft intro into what CARE is about. And I say soft because you've got a teacher now who's sitting there going, even if you pick up the hotline, we're going to treat you quietly. No one's going to know. We're going to protect you, and we're going to listen. So if you've got somebody out there, male, female, doesn't matter, have them pick up the phone. If you're a grandparent and you're frustrated and you don't know what to do, pick up the phone and call CARE. The
And it's
easiest way to have a friend, go ahead. The easiest way to have a friend, though, is to pick up the phone. But go ahead.
And like you were saying, just, like if you're an elderly person and somebody's not doing, mistreating you or whatever, I mean, it is, you just, hit it right on the head there with, we are a compassionate ear. We are a friend. And as I said before, the wonderful thing is you can call and, say, if I called, I'm M today, and you want to call back 6 times over the next 2 weeks, that's fine. You can do that. You never have to give more information than your M, and that's the way it is. But if you want us to be here, we are here for you, and you have to know that there is a way out. So I implore all your listeners, if you are not in a situation, but you know of someone, share these numbers with them. And who knows, a week, 2 weeks, 6 months, they may decide to actually, call and help themselves. And that's such a powerful thing when they start to get, as I said, that control back in their lives. And sometimes it is just a conversation and a caring ear that just, you know, is there for them. And we can be there for them, as I said, for years.
Take a look at the drop down there. Um, the drop down for the resources. You've got dating violence, domestic violence, sexual violence, stalking, elderly abuse, support groups, and additional resources. If people are wondering what CARE does, just go to CARE. What is it? CAREFL or CAREFL.org and click on the resource tab. I'm telling you, there's just an unbelievable amount of resource at your fingertips. Let alone the fact that you can text and chat online, and you can call and talk to somebody. There's
Yeah.
so many opportunities to get some help, isn't there?
Absolutely. And there are so many opportunities out there. And if you are fortunate enough to be a person who has never had any of these domestic or SV violence, in your background, but I see scrolling along the bottom is if you do want to make a donation in memory of someone, or, that is an awesome way to help, because we are a nonprofit organization and we do rely a lot on donations. And we are so blessed to be in this wonderful community of Charlotte County and in Punta Gorda, and we do get a lot of donations. But we always, of course, money donations are always the best. And that enables us to be able to go out into the community, to be able to provide legal advocacy, to be able to give support groups, to be able to put the education out there in our younger generation and our older generation hands. And without donations and without grants and such, as I said, we're unable to do that. But we are so fortunate, and we do have so many different resources. And we even have the reuse stores, one of which, unfortunately, right now in Englewood is under repair. I don't know if the one in Port Charlotte has opened back up, but along the lines of Goodwill, our reuse store has many different items, household items, clothing, things of that nature. And so that, I believe, is on, actually, you can see the link right there. Can you click on that, John? I'm trying to click on it on my computer. You should see. um,
Hard to do
but
using my screen. I'm not share screening. Or
yes. But
load up right now.
I think yes, it will give the addresses, I believe. So, but that's a really great way if you have extra household things or donations or anything like that. There's two locations. And as I said, the one in Inglewood is right now is under repair, but I believe the one in Port Charlotte just reopened after Ian. And always seeking donations, but if you are someone who is in need, that's always out there. And if you are a client of ours or survivor of ours, that's another way. The reuse shops, if they're going on interviews or they have children and need clothes, they can go into these stores and get everything free of charge, because we try to do everything we can for our survivors and their family to make the transition as easy as possible. They've had enough roadblocks.
And you know the thing we talked about the gifts and things like that. Keep in mind that um, what we've learned from CARE over the years on this show is that there's funding that comes in for CARE, and then there's also gifts that come in, and the fundraising side of things, and those types of things open up more avenues for CARE to provide different services because their budget comes out of one side and their donations and their fundraising, of course, opens up that gateway to help people in a completely different manner that is structured through the CARE program itself. So keep that in mind is when you're giving money to CARE, it is actually going to direct help to people in need. So keep that in mind. It's a different structure, and they do get funding for the business side of things, but it is also critical for them to get this type of funding, isn't it?
It absolutely, absolutely. The grants that we get are, is the funding that has to be spent a specific way. But when we get monetary or gifts, that is money that we can put into programs that we deem, fit. And, it is the holiday season. So I know lots of times when the community's out there and they're looking for a way to give back, they don't have so many gifts they need to get for their family or whatever. This is a great, opportunity to be able to write a check and tax deductible check
Absolutely.
and, and make a donation because it just affects so many people's lives. And it's just, it always appreciated. But yes, when we get money that doesn't, come through specific funds, it's very wonderful because then we can directly affect those survivors in our community.
So we've got just maybe a minute and a half left, believe it or not. Did this go as quickly as I told you it would?
It did. It did. You made it very easy, John. I have to say, I do appreciate that.
And it's nothing like talking about something you have a passion for. And so we kind of covered education, a 22-year education, right? And then
Yeah.
we covered CARE, which is the most important part of this. But I hope you'll come back on again, and give us some more updates. Are there anything that we've missed, fundraisers that are coming up or anything?
No, just that, I did send you something, but you must not get it about the symposium, but that's coming up, as I said, in January 12th of 2023, and that's on the human trafficking. And if you do want to make a donation to CARE, of course we would love for you to do that. And it's sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's you can send a donation to CARE at PO Box 510234 Punta Gorda, and that's 339510234. It's going along the screen right now, but I just said that. And just more than anything, I think I have a few seconds here.
Yep.
I'm just going to speak out to the survivors out there. If you are in a domestic violence or a sexual violence situation, please remember that we are out here for you, and we are out here to listen, not to judge, and not to make you do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. We are here to try to empower you and put that power back into your hands. So please reach out to the hotline, which is 627-6000, or the helpline, which is 941-637-0404. And remember that we do have the text helpline, which is 941-499-8534. We're here to listen. You do not have to do this alone.
This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio 97.5 FM and KDWRadio.com saying thank you so much. Have a great day, Marilyn. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.